Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Chloe Feng. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. 8 members of a film crew are injured when their work platform crashes to the ground in Kowloon City. The government extends its overseas search for medics as the first batch recruited in Britain prepares to arrive in Hong Kong. And China criticizes a G7 communique which takes aim at so-called economic coercion. 8 people shooting a scene for a film were injured, one seriously, when their work platform plunged to the ground in Kowloon City. It's believed that a crane lifting the platform lost balance. Janice Low reports.
An elevated working platform crashed to the ground outside the Regal Oriental Hotel in Kowloon City at 4:30 this afternoon. A lorry carrying the crane was upended by the impact. The incident happened while a company was shooting a scene for a film. 8 workers on the platform were injured, one of whom became unconscious. 2 of the victims were cameramen, and the others were their assistants. This man believed the lorry which carried the crane was not strong enough. The lorry was very small. Most of the people remained conscious when they fell to the ground, he said. This restaurant operator revealed that a customer heard screams at the time. He saw 2 people unable to move as they were pinned down by the platform, she added. 4 of the injured were sent to Kwangwa Hospital and the rest to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Janice Low, HKIBC.
The hospital authority has described its soon-to-be-launched global talent scheme as a win-win situation. This comes as health officials try to recruit more medics to make up for a shortage and the resignation of experienced doctors and nurses.
Hospital Authority Chairman Henry Fan says 32 British-based doctors have agreed to work in Hong Kong, and some will be arriving in the 3rd quarter of the year. During a recruitment drive in Britain last month, the authority issued 139 conditional offers to doctors and Hong Kong medical students. Another recruitment campaign will take place in Australia next month, along with a global talent scheme to lure non-local medical professionals, including those from the mainland. To make the short-term employment offer attractive, the hospital authority, the HA, will allow successful applicants to train in a specialized field of their choice.
The main purpose is to attract talents who need or who believe they can gain from receiving some training at HA to come and work for us for a year or 2, thereby creating a win-win situation for both sides.
Fan said Hong Kong has only 2 doctors for every 1,000 people, one of the lowest rates in the world. On top of this, around 7% of doctors and 11% of nurses, most of them experienced, resigned in the 12 months to March.
It is not exactly that we would use the global talent scheme to cover the lack of experience at HA. Instead, we have other schemes, for instance, extending the employment term of our retired professionals to help with the lack of experience.
Fan stressed that there will be no compromise on standards and local graduates will get priority.
Hong Kong's health chief says about 10,000 people are being infected by COVID every day. But Lau Cheng-mao assured that the situation is under control because of the city's high vaccination rate. About 2,700 COVID patients are currently being treated in hospital. The hospital authority is closely monitoring the situation in public hospitals. Lau urged people to remain alert, although the World Health Organization says COVID is no longer a global health emergency. The observatory has recorded its hottest day of the year so far. The hot spell prompted officials to issue the amber heat stress warning for the 3rd consecutive day. Janice Low reports.
Umbrellas were in demand this morning. not to keep out the rain, but for protection from the sun. It was the hottest day so far this year at the observatory in Chimsha-choi, where the mercury hit 32.7 degrees Celsius. But it was hotter elsewhere. Just before 2 p.m., it was a sweltering 34.9 degrees in Changsha, making the border town the hottest place in the city.
Under the influence of the southerly air stream, the weather generally over the coastal areas of Guangdong will remain hot, with the showers around in the next couple of days. Basically, hot weather will prevail and will continue in June.
For the third straight day, the Labor Department issued the amber heat stress warning to prevent heat stroke, especially among outdoor workers. The amber alert, the lowest of 3 levels, allows workers, including street cleaners, to take a 15-minute break after toiling for 45 minutes. The signal was taken down at 12:30 p.m. after 2 hours. The high temperature affected a hiker in Taipo, who is believed to have suffered a heat stroke at around noon. The 63-year-old man was found unconscious at the Plover Cove Reservoir Country Trail and was airlifted to Eastern Hospital. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Chief Justice Andrew Chang has reminded legal practitioners to protect the rule of law by not letting anyone undermine the system. He was speaking at the admission ceremony for 4 new senior counsel: Christopher Chen, Bruce Chat, Anthony Chen, and Mike Loy. Chen said lawyers are responsible for defending any attempt to interfere in the work of the judiciary. Secretary for Justice Paul Lan echoed Chen, saying legal professionals have to speak out and defend the legal and the judicial system. The Hong Kong e-toll system has not been able to detect about 5% of vehicle tax, which means the drivers could not be charged automatically. Transport Commissioner Rosanna Lau said the daily vehicular traffic flow reached 60,000 since the system was launched at the Qingsha Highway 2 weeks ago, but up to 3,000 vehicle tags could not be detected. Lau said if this continues, the Transport Department might invite drivers for a vehicle's inspection to see if there's a problem with the tags. The system will be extended to the Xingmen tunnels tomorrow. The tunnels will be closed for 30 minutes at 4:30 a.m. to prepare for the launch. Overseas, the leaders of the G7 nations have issued a communique aimed at helping them deal with competition from China. They also pledged to fight economic coercion.
On the second day of their summit in the Japanese city of Hiroshima, the leaders of the world's richest Western countries released a communique stating that the G7 is prepared for constructive and stable relations with China while acting in their national interests. The leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Britain, and the United States agreed that they were not decoupling or turning inwards. A growing China that plays by international rules will be of global interest, the communique said. But the G7 warned that countries which try to use trade as a weapon would face consequences. This was seen as a message to Beijing over practices which Washington says amount to economic bullying because of its major role in supply chains for a wide range of products. The Hiroshima summit rolled out a set of measures to counter what the G7 called economic coercion. These include rapid information sharing to come up with a coordinated response. On Taiwan, the statement noted the importance of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait as indispensable to global security and prosperity. Chinese embassies in Britain and Canada had already issued preemptive criticisms of the expected communique, saying it's Beijing that is a victim of economic coercion by the United States through tariffs and the discrimination against certain state enterprises. Host nation Japan also invited 8 other nations, including South Korea, Australia, and India, in a bid to solve the world's most serious crisis.
Two survivors of the Hiroshima atomic bombing have questioned whether world leaders really understand the consequences of a nuclear attack. Two elderly men who were babies when the United States dropped an atomic bomb in 1945 said the survivors suffered all their lives. They want the world to be spared a repeat of the horrors, but feel that leaders are too complacent. About 250,000 people died in the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. The U.S. claimed that the attack, followed 3 days later by the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, was aimed at bringing an early end to the Second World War. But critics said there was no need to bomb the cities, as Japan was about to surrender. The United States has caved into pressure and agreed to allow its allies to provide Ukraine with sophisticated fighter jets, including American-made F-16s. The U.S. will help to train Ukrainian pilots to fly the planes as they try to push back Russian forces. Washington has long resisted Kyiv's demands for fighter jets, fearing that Moscow might be provoked into escalating the conflict. The climb down is a major boost for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who made a surprise visit to the Saudi city of Jeddah to urge Arab leaders to support him. From the Middle East, Zelensky flew to Hiroshima, arriving there this afternoon to thank U.S. President Joe Biden and other G7 leaders for backing Ukraine. The head of the U.S. Central Bank has hinted that interest rates will not go up next month as inflation has eased.
The risks of doing too much versus doing too little are becoming more balanced, and our policy has adjusted to reflect that fact. So we haven't made any decisions about the extent to which additional policy firming will be appropriate, but given how far we've come, we can afford to look at the data and the evolving outlook and make careful assessments. So today, while inflation isn't as high as it was when I was in college, it's nonetheless far above our 2% objective, and many people are currently experiencing high inflation for the first time in their lives.
On to the weather now. It will be mainly cloudy with a few showers tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 27 and 32 degrees. Hot and humid during the next couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That is our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Chloe Feng. Thanks for watching. Good night.